Let's talk about the right and culture and pop culture and whether the right undervalues art, entertainment, pop culture, and media. Lately, Matt Walsh has been going back and forth with Jeremy Hambley of The Quartering. He was also getting into it with G Prime. They were talking about it. They were talking about it in the context of letting your kids play video games for too long. You saw that exchange. And a lot of people believe, and I do agree, this is my stance on it, that I do believe that the right, as we know it, not like what I would consider the cultural right, because like I said, I think the right now encompasses so many different groups that it's very hard to pin down what that is, because a lot of people would call me right, and I don't consider myself right.
Nowadays, the right really means not left.
Exactly.
If you're not the left, if you're if you're an actual liberal or a conservative, then you're quote unquote the right, and the left is the left.
Right.
So, do you believe that the right, as we know it, the traditional right, undervalues art in entertainment?
No.
I don't know that I'm tapped into what the traditional right thinks either, though.
I believe
the religious right. So I put a poll up on the live chat. So far, 83% say yes, that they do believe that the right underestimates the importance of pop culture, music, television, video games, etc.
Okay, when you phrase the question that way, then yes, but I don't think they undervalue it. I don't think they pay attention to it.
Well, I mean, then that's undervaluing it by not paying attention to it.
I mean, there was a time when All That Remains was, so this is before the culture war got really hot, right? Before, it was like 2000, 10 years ago. When we were coming up, I was kind of like, being like, yo, I'd like to go and talk to like conservatives and kind of be, available to talk to people and blah, blah, blah. And like MSNBC had me on their website and stuff.
Yeah.
I said dirty words.
Nice.
It was about free speech. But, it's like they had me on. Nobody at Fox was calling. Nobody at The Blaze was calling. And I was doing basically everything I could to be like, hey, we're in a band that's doing good things and like you should blah, blah, blah. And they don't the right doesn't really have much interest. It was as if I couldn't get their attention or whatever. And so I think that there's probably some truth to that the right doesn't really realize that there's value. It's easy to be like, okay, Five Finger Death Punchers is like arguably the biggest metal band going right now. Yeah. It's easy to be like, oh, if Five Finger Death Punch wants to do something that favors right-leaning stuff, that's obviously you want to go ahead and get on that. But really where I think you pay bills is when you have, I mean, obviously you want to have as much impact from big artists, but if you get a bunch of small artists and have them kind of putting ideas out there, it does pay dividends, and it pays serious dividends in the culture. It pays dividends with a lot of people, with reaching more people that are listening to a similar message.
I'll tell you right now, the White House is parading influencers and actors in and out more than they're bringing in national security advisors.
Yeah,
I think so. I don't know how I quite want to phrase this, but I don't think it's controversial that the right, if you will, isn't paying enough mind to arts and entertainment as the left. They have a completely different lifestyle, right? When you're someone who grows up on a farm, you don't have time to go to protests. You don't have time to go and paint and stuff like this. You are working, and you're working hard. Mm-hmm. But it's a different type of art. Like being able to produce vegetables and raise animals and have a working farm is art in itself.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about typical art right now. We're talking about the art, the mass media
music,
art.
movies, sure, but it's my point remains, right? It's like when you are busy working, like that's the thing. Like you said, after a long day's work, you want to rewatch something that you know. You're not going out and looking. And so the left constantly has people who have an abundance of free time. They have the opportunity and the ability to go and read new books, look at paintings, watch new movies, right? The right, who is driving trucks, working on farms, working a lot of these blue collar jobs, hustling, they don't have time or the energy to spend just trying to find new art. And that's why
I
originally,
think that's to their detriment long term.
But that's why I originally said I don't think they don't value it. I just don't think they're just not paying attention to it.
I think there's a certain amount of personality that goes into it. So like your the attributes that make up your characteristic, that make up your personality. Artists tend to have a left-leaning bias.
Yes.
Not all the time, but
absolutely, they do.
And that
because it's part of being, it's part of that form of expression, right?
Yeah.
Like they're more you could say emotionally tuned
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah.
Like they're more in their feelings, and like I said, Ben Shapiro is going to come out here and say like facts don't care about your feelings. Well, they don't care about facts.
Yeah.
They care about feelings, and they want to. My favorite thing to break down is always like whenever they make these excuses when they change a television show, and they're like, why is George Bush going to be played by a black guy? And they're like, well, because it wasn't really about George Bush. It was about exploration. And they start naming off all of these vague terms as to why it's this or why it's that. That's artist speak for just we wanted to make it something that it wasn't, so it is what it is. But in their head, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. There is an amount of desire to change what change reality, create something. They want to affect reality. They want to create something. And so, fair enough, but that's not to say that there aren't people that are, on the liberal side that are artists. And I think that, again, a lot of the problem is that the far left has smuggled far left ideas in wearing liberal clothing or wearing a liberal, facade.
So, what I'm seeing right now is I actually don't think either side's really creating new art. I think this goes with the whole reboot phenomenon that right now is that as a society right now we've completely lost creativity.
Apple TV's putting out stuff that's not reboots, right? Like Apple, nobody watches it, but Apple TV's doing it.
Like
Severance.
Far left radicalists will go into museums and completely destroy priceless works of art.
Given the opportunity, yes, they will.
The right, rather than producing new buildings with the architecture that they want to see, they just complain how everything's just bland and boring now, and be like, we used to have like I forget what the word is that they use, but we used to have decorum, and they'd show pictures of like the pillars, like basically DC architecture, all that ancient kind of medieval-esque Gothic style,
which is an arid reproduction of Roman architecture.
Right. But my point is there's nothing new being made. Yeah. It's one side destroying what exists and the other side complaining that we don't have it anymore.
When people talk about Matt Walsh and these things that are being said here, right? Like, I do think that there's a lot to be said about the idea that, look, conservative policy might make a good life, but good art makes life worth living. Like, there's a lot of people that believe, like, in Minnesota, for all of the problems the government has, it has beautiful museums, it has beautiful architecture, it has all of this great art and stuff like that, but the city is not very worth living in right now.
Right.
So it's like you have to find a medium between the two. Yeah. I do think that to the right's detriment, they don't understand the cultural influence that these things have over kids, over the youth.
I think that's a great point you bring up. That's why Austin, Texas was really cool. I think you were down there, Phil. Mm-hmm. The city was really, really cool because it's in a red state. So you get that conservatism that's still, Austin's blue, but you still get the conservatism that's hovering around it all times. But then you do get that really cool art where every street corner, unless you go to like downtown, most street corners are clean, but they've got awesome murals on the wall, right? Mm-hmm. So you get this nice balance going on. And I don't know how long it's going to last.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing.
But right now, I loved my time in Austin. I'm like, it's a beautiful city. It's clean for the most part.
It's on a
I'm
clock.
not worried about getting attacked,
But it's through these mediums that you influence the kids. And we can say that all they're making is reboots and all they're doing is this and that. They're still influencing the next generation with all of these projects.
But sure. I'm not saying they're not successful. I'm saying, but just new art is not really being created.
I'm not talking about whether it's good art. I'm saying, do we underestimate the importance of it, good or not?
I don't. Maybe that's what I'm doing right now. Yeah. But I just think people are afraid to take risks. Yeah. And the risks that we are seeing is like kind of ridiculous. Like, what was that new sculpture we saw in New York that went up? Can you pull up a picture of that?
The one when I don't know it. Like,
I'll try to find the name of it.
What was that on? Like and it looked really horrible.
I know. It was like two people hugging or something. I think it was like.
What was that of? Do you remember that?
It was
film?
of, I think, Martin Luther King
It was,
hugging his wife.
it was like a Martin Luther King sculpture, and it looked horrible.
Oh, it was the arms. Yes.
Yeah.
It just looked like a penis.
Oh my
There were
God,
too many.
okay.
There were too many directions you could look at it, or too many perspectives you could have where it
Boston.
looks like
Yeah.
a penis.
It's called Embrace Sculpture.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, and
Everybody, look, it's the whole Rian Johnson syndrome, right? Rian Johnson wanted to ruin Star Wars, so that's what he did. And that's what artists today do. If you can't create, they're just like, well, then I'm just going to ruin things.
And I think for them, it's like he's being put in charge of this massive property with all of this success. It's like, how do you live up to that?
Rian Johnson?
Like, well, that's what I'm saying, right? Like, for somebody like him, it's like he's not taking it as a challenge. He's just too intimidated, so therefore he tears it down.
I can't speak to what he was thinking, but I can speak to the fact that I hate his guts, and I hope that he never makes another movie again.
Well, I actually liked Glass Onion, so
I haven't.
I'm fine with his work as long as he's not adapting. As long as he's not adapting.
I will
Star
say-
Wars, and I don't want to go see anything else.
for all the
that he's ever made.
reboots, Knives Out and Glass Onion have been refreshing. And they're not even that good of a movie. I mean, they're good.
It's fine.
But they're not.
It's fine.
Like, where is the Goodwill Hunting of movies anymore, right? Where's those groundbreaking movies that everyone has? And maybe it's just because we live in a world where everything's online. You can either pirate it or just stream it as it gets a dual release.
Remember, most movies that have impact have some kind of risk, right? Like everybody talks about like how great like Pulp Fiction was, right? Or
Right.
there's so many people that like that was a really risky movie with a lot of edgy stuff. That
Oh,
if
yeah.
you put that out now, there might be a lot of backlash. There were
true.
rape scenes.
Yep.
There was a lot of murder, a lot of death, and a lot of stuff that nowadays people might have a real problem with. So if your society is going to boycott and attack people for creating art, the incentive is to not make art. It is to reproduce existing things that are that take the place of art. But it's not art because you're not taking any risk. You're not doing anything new. You're just putting out safe things. You have to take a risk, or else it's not going to impact people. It's just blah blah. And I think.
Do you think?
I think the reason that that there's so many things that come out that are like mediocre and at best is because everyone's afraid of being canceled because they put the wrong thing in
Well, yeah,
movie or
that's
show.
art by committee.
Yeah, I mean, yep,
it
fair
doesn't
enough.
lead to anything that's truly groundbreaking. Do you think that there's now and I do think this culturally falls on both sides, right? Now, when both sides create, they're doing it with the greater desire to impact the culture. So I think the left has always created art with the desire to impact the culture. They just did it more effectively back in the '90s and before that. So I think movies that integrated like different storylines that would have been considered progressive at the time were better done back then, but it was still done a lot of times with that intent. I remember I was watching I love the show Elementary. It came out in like 2012. It's where they made Lucy Liu Watson, which by the way, a perfect example of where that can be done right and it's not annoying. It's actually done really, really well. The guy who created that show said he did it and he refused to make them, despite the fact that the actors have great chemistry. He wanted to do it so that he could show that men and women could work together while just being friends. That's still trying to change culture or through your art, however corporate the art may be.
Yeah.
There's always that intent in all of it. But now when when the left creates art and does it with the intent of changing the culture, they do so gleefully. I feel, now this is just my opinion, a lot of times when we see it now on the right, when they want to create art, it's in a defensive posture where they're doing it because they need to affect the culture now.
I was just going to say, and the opposite is that where the art that we're seeing, like when you talk about like woke stuff being included in movies, it's never actually to uplift someone that's being oppressed. It's I'm noble and you are the problem.
Let me point out how bad you are. It's always condescending.
Right.
It's never, ever like, hey, look, we need to do this to help these people. It's always like, let me tell you why you're bad. It's always condescending. Never good.
Chat, I'm going to bring up Tarantino because you know I always love doing that. But Tarantino and Samuel L. Jackson is the perfect example of Samuel L. Jackson has been the star of Tarantino's movies for how long, especially in a time period where, black actors were not given the opportunities that they felt they should be getting. And meanwhile, Tarantino does not make a stink about it. He does not be like, look how noble I am. He just casts him because he knew he was a good actor in prominent movies and prominent roles. And You know, let's like that is how you actually affect change. That's how you actually be a good person and create good art. And the movies speak for themselves. I mean,
there's a $20 one right there.
Because reasons. The right clearly underestimated pop culture. Look who took control of it. And now they have to fight like hell regarding your poll.
Yep.
I want to say something about that. They did underestimate pop culture, but the infiltration of the media was intentional. So there are a bunch of people on the left that are like, look, we need to go into the culture producing areas in the United States and in the West, and we need to infiltrate, and we need to make culture that promotes our ideas.
Which is why every magazine article is written the way it is when it's on these sites like a Kotaku or a Movie Web or something
100%,
like that. Yeah.
100%. It's infiltrated media, news, and culture, all the culture creation establishments, or whatever you want to call it, you know? So.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.